Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning. It's Chris Hand. Mac Maury, my producer, decided to show up for work today. Thank you, Mac.
Hello, I'm back.
Where were you Friday?
I was moving. I was getting everything moved out.
You know, you could have done that on the weekend.
Yeah. Well, I did. Trust me.
So we talked about it a second ago during the Gang of the Amigos, but I want to make sure that you were brought up to speed for what we talked about on Friday.
Okay.
Does your new apartment building have a white roof?
I don't think it does.
Well, the Biden regime is going to have to fix that.
They didn't get the memo.
No,
gosh.
Here, hang on. This is what they said they're working on. Oh, you got to give me audio. This is what happens. Mac takes a day off.
And then I forget how to do
Forgets
everything.
everything. This is Biden talking about what your apartment complex should do, Mac.
We also have a number of programs to do everything from allow people to have the ability to get help to literally paint their roofs white.
So people are going to get help to paint their roofs white. It's to fight climate change.
Of course.
Don't ask any questions. All right? I don't want you to come off as a right-wing extremist or anything. So that was Biden last week. He's currently on vacation. I know, the hardest working man in politics.
He needs it.
It must be shocking for you to hear this. But Joe Biden is once again on the sands of Rehoboth Beach in Delaware, taking an extended break from the duties at the White House. And of course, you know, the timing is so great, you know, because the vacation takes Biden out of D.C. this morning, right as Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's longtime friend and business associate, is expected to testify on Capitol Hill today in a closed-door hearing to share intimate details about foreign ventures he worked on and the level at which the president was allegedly and personally involved. So that could be going on right now. We're going to keep you up to date with anything that leaks out from Devin Archer. So with that being said, I don't want you to think that the president just left in a rush to get to vacation. He actually was pretty busy Friday afternoon. He signed an executive order to change Uniform Code of Military Justice by transferring key decision-making authorities outside of the military chain in cases of sexual assault, domestic violence, child abuse, murder, and other serious crimes. I mean, that's all good. We can celebrate the president when he does something good. But as he's there, and with that executive order, I do want to say it looks good on the surface. I'm sure there's something in the fine print that we'll disagree with, as there's always fine print with the Democrats. But on surface, yeah, it's fine, right? But while he was there to celebrate and sign this executive order, Biden, he just had impeachment on the brain the entire time.
Republicans may have to find something else to criticize me for. Now that inflation is coming down, maybe they'll decide to impeach me because it's coming down. I don't know.
Oh,
I love that one.
do you?
Oh, anyway, it's another story.
Oh, anyway, that's another story. So Biden has the resident has impeachment living rent free in his head. So this is what he's doing. He's signing executive orders and he's thinking about impeachment. It's pretty guilty. Seems pretty guilty.
Oh, anyway, it's
Anyway.
another story.
All right. That wasn't all he was doing there. He was also promoting websites that don't actually exist. Yep, you heard me correctly. He said this during his remarks while signing that executive order.
You can see exactly where to go if you go to online to go to invest.com. Invest.com.
I mean, yeah, it sounds pretty official, except there's no such website. There's just no website.
Yeah, that doesn't. I just did it. That's great.
It doesn't exist.
Nope, not a thing.
So I don't. But I mean, again,
It's another story too.
he was preoccupied because impeachment was living rent free in his head.
Now that inflation is coming down, maybe they'll decide to impeach me because it's coming down.
Yeah, we're gonna decide to impeach you because inflation's coming down.
I don't know.
Well, no, it's not that. I promise.
I love that one.
Do you?
Oh, anyway.
Anyway, so then, you know, he goes through this whole speech, this whole spiel, and then he forgets to do what he came there to do.
The bad news is I'm coming back to shake your hand, but I forgot I didn't sign the order.
He walked away, and he had to come back because he didn't sign the executive order that the whole thing was set up for him to sign. Like, that's a layup drill, Mr. President. That's a layup drill. The guy hands you the pen, and you still walk away.
Says I'm coming back to shake your hand, but I forgot I didn't sign the order.
Oh, my gosh. I want to isolate the clip. The bad news is I'm coming back.
Says I'm coming back to
The bad news is I'm coming back. Everybody was heading for the exits. Like, what happened? We're still dealing with this guy? Oh, my gosh. There's more news out of the Biden camp, too. He's a granddad again. Well, we knew that for a few months, but it's currently breaking news because he's accepting that he has 7 grandkids now.
We have some late-breaking news tonight regarding President Biden's family.
Lester, that's right. For the first time tonight, President Biden is publicly acknowledging his 4-year-old granddaughter, Navy Joan, the child of his son Hunter Biden, and an Arkansas woman out of wedlock. Republicans have criticized the president for not acknowledging
Republicans have criticized the president.
a 7th grandchild. But in a statement late tonight, President Biden says it is not a political issue. It's a family matter. He adds he and the First Lady want what is best for all of their grandchildren, including Navy.
Including Navy. All right. I was going to make a joke about the kid's name, but I'm not going to make a joke about the kid's name. This is me not making a joke about the kid's name. I'm just letting you know. I really wanted to, but I'm going to leave the kids out of it.
You're proving restraint.
I'm learning in this role when to hold back. So I'm not...
4 years old?
Yeah, 4 years old. It only took 4 years for Joe
Yep.
Biden to acknowledge that he had another granddaughter and a DNA test and a couple lawsuits. So that's what's going on in the Biden household this weekend. Do you think that they're going to give her back order on gifts? Like, do you think like next birthday she's going to get 5? Like Christmas she's going to get... I feel like they owe her that. That's just me. Biden wasn't the only one making the rounds over the weekend. A lot of Democrats out and about, man, and they're keeping busy. They're doing the darn thing. Kamala Harris jumped on ABC to talk about the border. She's doing a great job.
Busloads of migrants have been dropped off right at your doorstep by some GOP-led states. Despite those tactics, you do have Republicans who are largely making inroads with Latino voters. And there are many critics, some within your own party, who say that there's more that your administration should be doing on the migration front. Do they have a point?
So, first of all, let's agree that people should not be the pawns in a political game.
Oh, like removing the Remain in Mexico policy? Is that what she means?
Human beings should not be treated as pawns in a political game. What is happening in terms of sending these migrants, most of whom have fled great harm, and sending them across the country for the sake of some political showmanship, it's just irresponsible.
Well, I mean, to be fair, they're not sending them across the country for political showmanship. They're sending them to loving, caring, warm, welcoming sanctuary cities where they'll be embraced and cared for the way the Democrats say they should be. Right? Isn't that the whole point behind sanctuary cities? I mean, I know they're getting a little busy, but I thought that's why we were doing that.
If you want to deal with the problem, then do it if you are a leader by participating in the solution.
Oh, participating in the solution. That's what you should do if you're a leader, says Kamala Harris, paying no attention to the removal of all the Trump policies that were actually participating in the solution. Pay no mind to that. If you're a leader, participate in the solution, guys.
Participating in the solution.
That's what it's about. And people as pawns really galls me. Texas troopers find 5-year-old unaccompanied migrant girl near border. Texas Department of Public Safety troopers found a 5-year-old migrant girl near the border in Eagle Pass. The Honduran child crossed the border into Texas with 3 adult women who found her alone in Mexico. DPS spokesman Lieutenant Chris Olivares tweeted photos of a 5-year-old Honduran child in Eagles Pass, Shelby Park. The child said her father, who remained in Honduras, sent her to the U.S. to reunite with her mother. The 3 adult females she was with said they found her in Mexico. I mean, that doesn't pass the smell test at all. And with what we're hearing with child trafficking, human trafficking on the border, unaccompanied minors, where is Kamala Harris participating in the solution? Well, she's not. She's just participating in finger pointing. And when she's not finger pointing, she's just grandstanding and producing copious amounts of word salad, which is what she did while she was sitting down for an interview and in front of a crowd and delivering remarks. It was a word salad buffet.
And we know every day we must be vigilant in protecting that which we have achieved and keeping our eyes on our vision, our collective vision of how we continue to strengthen our nation.
Oh, deep thoughts with Kamala Harris. I will also say, I didn't make a joke about the new Biden grandkid name because I'm reserving myself, and I also want to let the listeners know that I haven't interjected any Kamala Harris laughs. I've edited them all out. I've read your super texts, and I will not do any Kamala laughs. I see Mac in there with he's got an itchy trigger finger.
Does that mean
ready to hit the button on the Kamala laugh. And I want to let the listeners know, had Mac done that, I would have roasted him. Kamala Harris also wanted to bring up criminal justice restructuring while she was there for those remarks, and more deep thoughts with Kamala.
And it includes what we need to do, for example, with the pipeline, and that is about restructuring and thinking about how we restructure, how we think about what causes people to enter the system and addressing those things.
Did she say we got to think about how we're thinking about restructuring, thinking about restructuring? I mean, I thought is it just me? I thought the Democrats already did this restructuring thing when they defunded the police. And then when it got way worse, they just changed the definitions and classifications of crime. Right? Wasn't that part of their restructuring plan? Might have been. Here was Kamala Harris on the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion during those same remarks.
You look at what's happening with these so-called leaders who are trying to say that diversity and equity and inclusion is somehow a bad thing. Let us not let them get away with that.
No, don't let them.
They're trying to get rid of DEI programs so that corporations will stop paying attention to who they're hiring and promoting. Will stop paying attention to who gets accepted to schools. Thinking about the issue of equity. Yeah.
Come on, man. DEI, it's so important because if DEI's there, then the kids are going to do great, right? I don't know. I read a story about a school that's probably pretty high on the DEI index. LeBron James's I Promise school in Akron. They're probably good on the DEI standards, but a new story is out that not one incoming 8th grader at LeBron James's I Promise school in Akron has passed the state's basic math test in over 3 years. So is it diversity, equity, inclusion? Where you at, bro? How come you're not helping out the kids? LeBron James's I Promise school in Akron, Ohio is currently facing severe criticism from members of the Akron Public School Board due to a troubling revelation, reports the Post-Millennial. Recent reports have disclosed that this year's incoming 8th grade class has not produced a single student who has passed the state math test in over 3 years. 3 years. The shocking news left board member Valerie McKittrick astonished as she expressed disbelief, saying, "Not one? In 3 years?" I mean, I would pretend to be shocked, but nothing surprises me. The data presented to her revealed that not a single student from the fall 8th grade class at the I Promise school could achieve proficiency in the Ohio State math test, per the Akron Beacon Journal. So weird. So weird, you guys. But they're pretty diverse and exclusive, and they got the equity, they got the inclusion. They just need to ramp up the math now. So that was maybe we should change it to DEIM for diversity, equity, inclusion, and math.
In math.
We could, yeah, that'd be great. It'd be great if we could step up the math stuff.
Is that important
It's,
in the school? The math stuff?
I don't know. I think it used to be.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I think with the new standards, it's becoming
Math.
a little bit frowned upon. They're on the 2 + 2 = 5 program, I would think. But per the Akron Beacon Journal, that is substandard in Ohio. So I'll keep you updated on that. It is 9:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Mac Maury is my producer. Ken Weaver in the newsroom. And you joining me on the Super Text line, 615-737-9986. This is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, it's Chris Hand for Paul Winkler Inc. And now, you know I'm a husband. I'm a father to 4. Financial stability is important. I sometimes have nightmares about paying for college or weddings in the future, but nightmares no more because I found Paul Winkler Inc. Now, I do have to tell you, because of the government regulators, I'm required to tell you that I'm paid every time this commercial airs. But I also want to tell you, I've been a listener of Paul's radio show since I moved to Nashville some years ago. And after meeting with him and realizing that he's the same guy on air that he is off the air, smart, honest, intelligent, I was all in, and I decided to become a customer myself. Since meeting with Paul and breaking bread with him, I've been impressed. Paul's a smart guy. He knows the financial world far better than I do. In fact, I do want to ask him about Sam Bankman-Fried and the collapse and plea deal there when next time I talk to him. But nothing at Paul's office is done on commission, and they're big on education. He answers all of my questions. He's made my financial goals far more realistic by explaining what to do and why. Their investment education is evidence-based and backed by Nobel Prize-winning research. You should check them out. Every office is run by a degree planner with over 20 years experience. You can feel the difference between Paul's team and the rest. Hit up paulwinkler.com for a complimentary 15-minute phone call. paulwinkler.com or call 615-851-1950.
Great Britain on a mission to become energy independent. I'll tell you what that means coming up at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I think energy independence is it's white supremacy in action. I read that. I think I read that on CNN.
I think it's funny that all the talk about how, advanced Europe is and how they're really into climate change, yet you've got the prime minister there saying, by the way, go ahead and allow some more oil and gas leases.
Yeah, seriously. I wish that Biden didn't empty our reserves so that way we could have some lower gas prices right now.
Yeah, that'd work.
Yeah. Hey, earlier I was talking about Kamala Harris and just the dumb things that she said over the weekend. But I didn't want to bury the lead. Not everything she said was dumb. Some of it was just asinine.
Was that when she was clearing her throat?
Yeah, exactly. Here, listen to this.
Many people know that story about the 2 pots of water and the 2 frogs. So here's how it goes. 2 pots of water.
Yeah.
In one pot, you drop the frog in it, and you start to slowly turn up the heat.
You got it so far. You got 2 pots of water. And then on the one pot of water, you're slowly turning up the heat, and that's the one that you put the frog in, okay? Everybody keeping up?
And that frog will start getting used to the heat as it goes up, and eventually the pot of water will start boiling, and that frog will perish.
Oh.
In the other pot, you first turn up the heat so the water is boiling. You drop that frog in it, that frog is going to jump right out. Let's not be that first frog.
What is she talking about?
Man,
we
have got to find her source.
I don't want to be either frog, actually. Like I don't want to be the one in the slow pot boiling and perishing, as she put it. And I don't want to be thrown into a boiling pot of water that I have to jump out of either. So I feel like she's missing the point behind that story. But, as is Kamala Harris, missing the point has become, traditional. Okay. Oh, Mac, I promised we weren't going to do the laugh.
I couldn't help it.
What are you doing?
What are you doing, Brother Mac? You're going rogue.
All right. We're going to go do the news, and I'm going to talk to Mac off the air. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
$9:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories this Monday morning. I don't see a chance for rain until Wednesday. Until then, I'll tell you what's going to happen during the full forecast in 2 minutes. Changing tact on arriving at net zero goal in 2050. Britain will now grant hundreds of new oil and gas licenses. This will be in the North Sea in a bid for energy independence. Here's Tom Rivers with more.
Ignoring environmental calls to stop the development of new fossil fuel projects, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak acknowledges such resources will be required for decades to come. And it's
better for the climate, because if we're going to need it, far better to have it here at home rather than shipping it here from halfway around the world with 2, 3, 4 times the amount of carbon emissions versus the oil and gas we have here at home. So it is entirely consistent with our plans to get to net zero.
Despite statements to the contrary, many European states would privately be envious to be in such a position as the UK, with its vast energy potential at its doorstep.
TBI is investigating after a deputy with the Cheatham County Sheriff's Department passed away over the weekend. Special agents responded to a home in the 2300 block of Highway 12 in Ashland City, where the body of this off-duty deputy was found. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things I've been hearing a lot from people lately is the concern about the dollar crashing. And you'll see this out there on the internet all over the place, articles written about it. And the idea is that the Russian and Chinese, those countries are looking at getting together and creating their own currency that will compete against the US dollar as a reserve currency. Now, for many, many decades, there have been other currencies that have been trying to vie for that status. And there's a possibility that you're going to have some that are going to encroach on that a little bit. But is it that big of a thing to worry about? Well, number one, last year, the Chinese currency made up very little of any kind of world trade, number one. But what is it that's really going on underneath the surface? A lot of it is trying to sell you newsletters and investments that you probably ought to stay away from. For example, one of the things I see is, well, you ought to buy gold because the dollar's going to crash. And you see all of these commercials out there, and I say, well, wait a minute, wait. They're trying to get you to buy gold with your what? They're looking to take your dollars. If they really believe what they're saying, why would they take your dollars for their gold? Number one. Number two, how do you protect yourself against these valuation changes in various currencies? Well, let me explain it this way. Let's say that you had a currency called the clam. Okay, and you had a country that had one clam and you could exchange it for $1 at any one point in time. Let's say that that's the case. And you had a widget that was sold by this country, and you could buy that widget in that country for one clam. So you take your $1, you exchange it for a clam, and then you got your widget. Now, what if the dollar weakens? Well, what happens now, this clam is the same, right? Nothing different here. It's the same deal. But instead of $1, now it takes $2 to get the clam. Now, what happened? Your widget just doubled in price from your perspective as an American. Well, how do we use this to our advantage? As an investor, we want to make sure that we don't just myopically only focus on U.S. stocks. And that's a big mistake investors made from 2000 through 2010 and other periods in history, in the 1970s, the late 1980s, and so on and so forth. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we have good international diversification, because if the dollar weakens, then those international investments go up in value. So it's very, very important to know how globally diversified you really are as an investor. You want to learn more? Call us up for a free 15-minute consultation at paulwinkler.com, paulwinkler.com, and we'll walk you through what we do and see if we can be of help to you, the investor out there that is so often being sold things that they really don't need to be buying.
.937 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Be a part of the show. Hit up the Super Text line, 615-737-9986. Your input is always valued, whether we're crowdsourcing the funny or the info. I can't do it without you. And find me off air on Twitter, Instagram, Truth Social, at Chris Hand on Air. Hit the follow button. I'll follow back. So Trump was in Erie, Pennsylvania over the weekend, and he was talking about quite a lot of things, including, China being in Cuba. China in Cuba.
China is building military places and forts and everything, installations. They're building military in Cuba, 71 miles off our coast. And the fake news doesn't even talk about it. When I heard this,
He's absolutely right. The news doesn't really talk about it at all. It would seem like it should be a bigger story, kind of like the email hacking scandal that we had seen going on thanks to Microsoft customer support. But there's been these military installations going up, and, people have known about it since June. Talking about it a little bit since June. But no action. Nope. It's so weird. There's never any action when it comes to China. Why is it? I mean, the State Department emails get hacked by Chinese groups. No action. Chinese nationals crossing the border. Military-aged males. No action. Chinese police operating in major U.S. cities. No action. So weird. Why is there never any action?
the reason he doesn't, because he's compromised. He's taken in so much money from China that he's afraid, because they know how much money they've given, and he can't have them reveal that to the courts and to Congress and to Jim Jordan and Jamie Comer. He can't have them reveal. So he's sitting there. He's a totally compromised president.
Oh, that's why. All right. He's just totally compromised. And we're seeing it left and right. Both sides of the media are starting to cover this story about how Joe Biden is completely compromised. Devin Archer testifying today in a closed-door hearing. As more news of that comes out, we'll have it right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN for you. But if Trump was president, how long would it take him to get, China out of Cuba? How long?
I will get them out within 48 hours. I think within 48
hours. Oh, that's it.
I think within 48 hours.
48 hours. That's it. No Cuban Missile Crisis. It would take 48 hours. 48 hours. Trump is on fire in Erie, Pennsylvania.
I will totally obliterate the deep state. We got to get it out. We did a big job. I got rid of Comey. I got rid of a lot of crap. But we will get rid of it. And I will say no to the 87 IRS agents who want to take your money, and much, much more than that. They want to weaponize the IRS.
They want to weaponize the IRS. Did you catch the flub in there? Did you catch the misspeak by Trump?
And I will say no to the 87 IRS agents who...
The 87 IRS agents. I bet, this is just me, I bet the media is kicking themselves that Trump didn't flub somewhere else. He said 87 IRS agents.
And I will say no to the 87 IRS agents who...
And my theory is that flub may have been intentional. I'll tell you why I think that could have been intentional. He said 87 IRS agents. Because if the media jumps on that flub, on that gaffe, if you will, to say, see, he's just like Biden, well, then the media would also have to say the real number too, 87,000. So this flub of Trump saying 87, this right here.
And I will say no to the 87 IRS agents.
I think that was bait. I feel like that was bait for the media. High quality bait, sure, but it still feels like bait. Is that just me?
And I will say no to the 87 IRS agents.
That seems like he planted that there. So that way the media could say, see, it's not just Joe Biden gaffing, and then they'd have to report the real number. Maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist. Very well could be. Very well could be. He also went on to talk about GOP releasing the FBI's 1023 document.
Really great guy, Chairman James Comer and Senator Chuck Grassley, and working with some of the finest people. They really are. Jim Jordan, so many fine people. Released a bombshell FBI document laying out a massive bribery scheme in which Hunter and Joe Biden shook down a Ukrainian energy boss. Shook him down. An energy boss, a big one, for $10 million so that, as the executive said, Hunter could protect us through his dad from all kinds of problems. Well, can you imagine if I did that one? That wouldn't work out too well.
No, it wouldn't work out well at all. And I don't know how well Hunter protecting people through his dad is working out. As we're seeing Devin Archer set to testify today, currently probably happening right now. I cannot wait to see what comes out of that. And as we get more info, we'll have it for you right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. But Trump was bringing the heat, and he kept going at, Trader Joe being compromised, the Hunter and the Ukraine scandal, and, exactly what Devin Archer is going to talk about today, Joe being on the phone.
It was also revealed this week that Hunter's business partner witnessed Hunter put foreign business associates on the phone with Crooked Joe at least 24 times. Let's see what happens with that, including with the corrupt Ukrainian energy company that Joe claimed he knew absolutely nothing about. I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about my son's business. My son's business? Remember during the debate, I said, what about your son's business? What about China? Nothing to do with China.
I remember that during the debate. Biden had a blank stare look of fear on his face. It was awesome. Trump was on fire over the weekend. I liked his speech. I really did. There was one part I didn't like. You ready for the part of Trump's speech that I didn't like? This is the part I didn't like.
When we win the election, a little more than a year from now, I will appoint a real special prosecutor to expose the monumental corruption of the Biden crime family once.
It's like, come on. Like, that's the only part I didn't like. I'm tired of special prosecutors. I'm tired of special counsels. I feel like they yield no results or very, very little results. You can talk about Mueller. You can talk about Durham. Did we learn things? Sure. We learned things. Did anything happen from the things that we learned? No. The only results I want are criminal charges and punishment. All of this, all of the investigations, all of the House Oversight Committee stuff, all of the Devin Archer testifying today, all of, wanting a special prosecutor or special counsel, none of it means anything without results. The only thing it means without results, real quantifiable results, real charges, the only thing that will mean is wasted tax dollars while we're trillions upon trillions in debt. So while I love what President Trump says, this line I do not vibe with at all.
When we win the election, a little more than a year from now, I will appoint a real special prosecutor.
I heard that and I was like, I'm out. Like that to me is like the swampy deep state right there. A real special prosecutor. Okay. Durham was supposed to be a real special prosecutor. But what happened? Nothing real. Nothing real. And that's where we're at with special prosecutors, special counsels. I'm over it. 100% over that stuff. Just feel like it's a waste of time and a waste of money. You can tell me that I'm wrong on the super text line. That's fine. 615-737-9986. 7670 texted in, said, I agree 100%. No more special counsels, no more special investigations. Stop it all. It's nothing but a waste of money and time. Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree.
So you said we've learned things from the special counsels. Maybe we've gained some information, but it hasn't yielded the actual results. Nothing's actually happened.
No, and all the stuff that we've learned is just getting stuff on file that the conspiracy theorists had beforehand. I said, with Trump's whole speech, the biggest thing that I took away was his troll saying 87 IRS agents instead of 87,000. I think he was trying to catch the media to cover his gaffe, and they didn't bite because they knew that it was bait, high quality bait. But it was bait nonetheless. And the super texters agree with me. 3812 texted and said, Donald Trump is the best troll ever. Who said, oh yeah, there was a couple texts coming in. I lost them. People are texting too fast. That's a good problem to have. But he's completely trolling them. He says, 87 IRS agents, because he wants the media to be like, see, Trump is too old too. He has gaffes. And then they have to report it's 87,000 IRS agents. Because that's the kind of thing that will wake up your normie NPC left-wing Joe Biden voter. At least I hope so. I don't know if anything's going to wake them up. I'll be perfectly honest with you. All right, so also over the weekend, we had Trump doing his thing. James Comer was all over the Maria Bartiromo show. I like Maria Bartiromo. I know it's on Fox News. I know it's the Paul Ryan Network. I still like Maria. But Saturday, we learned that the Justice Department was pushing for Devon Archer to report to prison just days ahead of the former Hunter Biden business partners' anticipated congressional testimony. That was according to new court documents. So Manhattan federal prosecutors on Saturday filed a letter requesting a judge set a date for Archer, 58, to start his one-year sentence in a fraud case unrelated to Hunter Biden's scandals. So Comer is on Maria Bartiromo as this is going down, and the DOJ is pushing for Devon Archer to report to prison.
So what is this letter? Can you walk us through it? The government is apprising the court of the status of Devon Archer's appeal of his judgment of conviction, and they request that the court set a surrender date for the defendant to report to a facility. Please walk us through what this letter says.
Yeah, the letter from the Department of Justice is trying to nudge the judge to go ahead and sentence Devon Archer for something unrelated to what we're going to be talking to him about tomorrow. It's odd that it was issued on a Saturday, and it's odd that it's right before he's scheduled to come in to have an opportunity to speak in front of the House Oversight Committee and tell the American people the truth about what really went on with Burisma.
Yeah, the timing was weird. The man's about to testify, and all of a sudden the DOJ wants him to report to jail. Sounds like witness intimidation to me. Does that sound like witness intimidation to you?
So, I don't know if this is a coincidence, Maria, or if this is another example of the weaponization of the Department of Justice.
Gotta be a
but I
coincidence.
can tell you this. The lengths to which the Biden legal team has gone to try to intimidate our witnesses, to coordinate with the Department of Justice, and to certainly coordinate with the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee to encourage people not to cooperate with our investigation, to encourage banks not to turn over bank records, to encourage Treasury not to let us have access to those suspicious activity reports. It's very troubling, and I believe that this is another violation of the law. This is obstruction of justice.
It is troubling. And, even the Biden DOJ realized that they were cooked when all of this started breaking on the internet on Saturday and Sunday. And then on Sunday, they actually reversed course, sending a letter to the Southern District Court of New York saying that, don't worry about it. Never mind. Devon Archer can testify. So you have to stay on top of this government and call them out on all of their shadiness. Because it wasn't until after the social media backlash claiming that the government was trying to intimidate Archer prior to his testimony that they decided to reverse course on that. So once again, the silent majority, when we use our voice, people do tend to listen. They do. How much they're going to listen, I don't know. I have no idea. On the way, the left has been defending the Biden crime family basically all weekend, nonstop, on repeat. They had the memo copy points, and they were ready to go. So we're going to hear from Rep. Goldman, Chuck Todd talking to Chris Coons, Senator Chris Murphy. They're all saying this is a witch hunt. Witch hunt? Those Trump terms must be testing very high because, the Democrats are now co-opting them. We'll talk about that after 10 o'clock. It is 9:51 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The CDC wants you to know COVID's still out there, and some news about one of the biggest trucking companies in the U.S. and how it's going to affect your pocketbook. Details at 10 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Is the COVID in the room with you right now, Ken? Sorry.
I'm not going to look in the corner.
Don't look. If you don't make eye contact, it can't hurt you.
That's right.
And stay seated. I remember that from the pandemic. As long as you're sitting down, it can't get you.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to wear the mask until you sit down.
That's it. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Don't forget, Super Text line is open, 615-737-9986. I was railing against special counsels and special prosecutors earlier, and 6242 texted in and said, Chris, so just let them get away with all of this injustice? What are we telling people? It's okay to be a criminal? And to that 6242, I say thank you for the text. Normally it's the Democrats that say it's okay to be a criminal, but I would say we're not letting them get away with injustice. We're just doing the same thing except cheaper if we don't have special prosecutors and special counsels. Because have we gotten any justice from our last special prosecutor, special counsel, specials? I haven't seen it. Could just be me. Maybe I'm not looking in the right places. I just see wasted tax dollars and no results. I don't mean to be blackpilled or a doomer, but yeah, I have little faith. I'm so sorry. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, Truth Social, at Chris Hand on Air. Following the news, we're going to be talking about how the left and listening to how the left has been defending the Biden crime family all weekend. This is Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Ten o'clock on the dot this Monday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast coming up in 2 minutes. And the CDC out with updated numbers on COVID-19 amid the summer heat. Derek Dennis has the latest.
The CDC noting a slight uptick in COVID-19 hospitalizations, about 7,100 nationwide for the week ending July 15th. That's a 10% increase from the week before, and as the summer heat was hitting its peak. Dr. John Brownstein with Harvard Medical School and Boston Children's Hospital warns actual testing has fallen off.
And so we don't fully have an appreciation for how big the surge is. The assumption is that it's smaller.
He says the hospitalization numbers are still at record lows, so are deaths, which are not increasing according to the CDC, and so far no new variants have emerged.
One of the biggest trucking companies in the U.S. likely to shut down. The government deemed them so essential that they gave them a $700 million COVID relief loan to keep them functioning. And now, Yellow Trucking Company expected to be the largest trucking bankruptcy in U.S. history. What that means for you is that experts estimate this means delivery costs are probably going to go up as other firms are now trying to pick up the slack as Yellow goes into bankruptcy. New concerns that China has hacked critical U.S. infrastructure and the search for malicious computer code in systems that control American power grids and water supplies. Martha Raddatz with more.
The fear is that hidden malware in U.S. infrastructure like power grids and water supplies are meant to disrupt possible future military operations, especially those that could involve Taiwan. The New York Times quotes an official saying that Chinese hackers have what is essentially a ticking time bomb that could allow China to stall military deployments by cutting off power communications or water supplies at U.S. military bases or even to those of just ordinary citizens.
Right now in Tennessee, TBI is investigating after the death of an off-duty deputy with the Cheatham County Sheriff's Department. Channel 4 says the DA requested TBI agents look into it. The deputy found dead at a home in the 2300 block of Highway 12 in Ashland City. The name has not been released. The body's been taken to the medical examiner's office to determine a cause of death, and that's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
So I'm sitting in the producer studio, just having a casual conversation with Mac Maury about the show and, where we want to go, what we want to do next. And he just looks up at me and says, 10 seconds. So, what?
That's so intense.
All right.
All right, bye.
All right, I'll see you. I got to go to my studio now. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. It is 10:05. While, everybody's been making the rounds, you're hearing all the stories about Devon Archer testifying today. We're going to have more info on those leaks as they come out. But, over the weekend, the left-wing talking heads, the foot soldiers of the Democrat Party, if you will, were on all the news channels. They were on CNN. They were on ABC, MSNBC, all the garbage news channels. And so I put myself through it to have these hot takes for you. So they're out there. They're defending the Biden crime family. It's your regular gang of Democrats. Rep. Goldman, Chris Coons, who else? Chris Murphy. All these bums. They're just a bunch of bums. But anyway, these bums somehow get on TV quite often. Let's start with Rep. Goldman. Manhattan, Brooklyn Rep. Daniel Goldman. He got in hot water one time after he retweeted a post from his government account onto his campaign profile, encouraging his followers to donate. It was a breach of house ethics rules. That's Rep. Goldman. So this guy who breaches house ethics rules is going to tell us that the Biden crime family is doing nothing wrong. Sounds about right. Here he is on ABC this week on the pardon potential for Hunter Biden.
Do you think a pardon for his son would be a mistake?
Yes, and I don't think there's any chance that President Biden is going to do that, unlike his predecessor, who pardoned all of his friends and anyone who had any access to him. President Biden has restored the integrity of the Department of Justice, and I think you see that in this case, where he kept on, and Merrick Garland kept on, a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney to investigate the president's son. If there is not an indication of the independence of the Department of Justice beyond that, I don't know what we could look for.
Yeah, what are we looking for here? He restored the integrity by leaving that Trump-appointed prosecutor on. So he's not pardoning his son. He restored integrity of the DOJ, and it's all Trump's fault, mind you. Thank you, Rep. Goldman. He's put it very well. He also wanted to let everybody know that the Hunter Biden plea deal and that falling apart and all the charges, those are Trump's fault too.
Were you surprised to see the judge in Delaware reject the plea deal? Not reject it, but not accept it?
Well, right. I think that there's been a lot of hay made of this, but this is a fairly typical process. Did
he say there's a lot of hay made about this? A lot of hay? All right.
That goes through. This was an unusual agreement, in part because it's a 24-month agreement, and there's the possibility that Donald Trump will be president. And we know from his presidency how much he weaponized the Department of Justice to go after his enemies and to favor his associates. And so Hunter Biden's lawyers are concerned that Donald Trump, if he were to get the presidency, would weaponize the Department of Justice. And so there is an added calculation to this. But the fact of the matter is that this is a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, a Trump-appointed judge. Okay. This is a very independent and thorough investigation. And I think that whatever happens in the Hunter Biden case, we can rest assured that it was done based solely on the facts and the evidence, and that there was nothing else to it.
So it's all facts and evidence, but it's also Trump's fault. So depending on the outcome, it's either fact-based or Trump's fault. Am I following that right? And he also points out that Donald Trump went after all of his enemies. How much time did Hillary spend in jail? I don't recall Donald Trump going after his enemies. Maybe I missed it. I can't pay attention to all the news. Some people on the internet tend to believe she's already in a cell in Gitmo. I don't subscribe to that theory, but who knows? Maybe that's what he's saying when he said Trump went after his political enemies. So I don't have any idea. Senator Chris Coons was on with Chuck Todd over the weekend, and he said he asked him point blank, should Joe Biden just come out and say that he's had no business dealings with his son?
Let me ask you this. Do you think it would behoove the president for him to come out and say, hey, I had no business dealings with my son?
Would that behoove him? Do you think that would behoove him?
Son's issues are my son's issues. Do you think he needs to say that more directly? Because there's a lot of people that believe something else would happen.
Well, let's be clear about that point, Chuck. There's been a 5-year investigation, 5 years, by a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney. This investigation started during the Trump administration, and they've come forward with not one shred of evidence tying President Biden to any of this.
Not one shred of evidence tying Biden to any of this. It's a Trump, says Senator Chris Coons. Thank you, Senator Chris Coons. I don't know. I honestly don't know how Chris Coons can still hold water for Joe Biden. I mean, we've all seen the photo of Senator Chris Coons' daughter, the now famous photo of Joe Biden sniffing her, just sniffing his sweet redhead girl, and she's so uncomfortable. And that was Chris Coons' daughter. And then Chris Coons is still like, nah, man, Joe Biden didn't do anything wrong. He can sniff kids. No big deal. And Trump, orange man bad. Well, I mean, not to be outdone by Chris Coons, Senator Chris Murphy was on CNN State of the Union. And when he was asked about the changes in the Biden story, he had 2 words for him. Witch hunt. Witch hunt.
Now the White House is saying, quote, the president was not in business with his son. That seems to be a change from when they previously said that Joe and Hunter Biden never spoke about it. Do you have any concerns about this?
I just want to point out it's weird that CNN is noting that there's been a change in the official story. Maybe CNN is starting to get nervous about everything coming out about the Biden crime family. Maybe CNN's trying to get in front of it. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But them acknowledging it is a step in the first step in the right direction. Admitting that you have a problem is the first step towards recovery, as they say.
I don't have any concerns. I think this is a witch hunt.
Witch hunt.
If Hunter Biden has broken the law, he should be held accountable for it. I don't think he's being treated any differently than anyone else who's been accused of the crimes that he's been accused of. He's had a lot of trouble in his life, and Joe Biden has been open about it, and I think has shown, as any caring father would, a lot of concern to try to help Hunter Biden recover. But there has never been any evidence that Joe Biden has compromised his office.
Never been any evidence that Joe Biden has compromised his office, says Senator Chris Murphy on CNN State of the Union with a straight face. No evidence at all.
In fact, to the very opposite. The evidence around the allegations Republicans have made about Hunter Biden's involvement in Ukraine suggests that Joe Biden was working to root out corruption in Ukraine, as he consistently did as vice president.
Yeah, he was rooting out corruption when he got rid of that prosecutor looking into Burisma. That's all he was doing. That's it. He was just rooting out corruption, and there's no evidence. Did I mention that it's a Trump-appointed prosecutor? And then Chris Murphy, I mean, listen, Democrats say Democrat things. We're prepared for that. But I feel like Chris Murphy had a jump the shark moment on that same interview when he said, it's not about age with Joe Biden, because he was, the Feinstein stuff, the Mitch McConnell stuff. He said with Joe Biden, it's not about age. Joe Biden can do the job.
Well, ultimately, voters in this country care about effectiveness. They care about whether a president can do the job. I guess age is relevant if it is an indicator that a candidate isn't up to do the most important job in the world. But Joe Biden is succeeding, and succeeding at an extraordinary and historic rate. The amount of major legislation passed by this president, the first gun violence bill in 30 years, the first major investment in clean energy, the biggest infrastructure investment in the history of this country, all of that doesn't happen without Joe Biden. He is a master legislative tactician. He was involved in a detailed way in the passage of all of those bills. I know, because I wrote the gun bill, and I was talking to Joe Biden on a regular basis. You pair that together with this dramatic expansion of the economy, America recovering at a faster pace than all of our other high-income competitors, and there is really zero evidence that Joe Biden can't do this job.
Yeah, zero evidence. I mean, They didn't even bring up the fact that Joe's ended cancer, or that he fixed climate change.
We also have a number of programs to do everything from allow people to have the ability to get help to literally paint their roofs white.
I mean, if Joe Biden wasn't mentally fit for president, how would he come up with banger ideas like painting your roof white to fight climate change? How could the man have ended cancer? I mean, seriously, right-wing extremists, man, they think that Joe Biden's the worst. That he's not mentally fit for this. I don't know. You know, the economy's doing great, that despite what CBS polls are saying Americans think. And I know. Listen, I'll admit with polls, I don't like polls when they disagree with me, and I like polls when they do agree with me. Other than that, I think polls are useless. But I will say CBS airing this poll is pretty cool because CBS, I feel like, is Mockingbird media. So when CBS is even admitting that 2/3 of Americans feel this way, I feel like you can take it with a little bit more weight.
Our new CBS News poll shows widespread pessimism about the economy. Roughly 2/3 describe it as bad.
As bad, says the CBS man. I mean, that must be bad, the way he said that.
Roughly 2/3 describe it as bad.
Very bad. 2/3 of Americans think the economy is doing bad. So, like, is it really 3/3? Because CBS is Mockingbird media, so they got to put a little fluff in there to make it a little bit more palatable. So I would even say it's probably 3/3 that describe it as
bad.
As bad.
Most say the economy's struggling and uncertain. Personally, 70% of working Americans say those paychecks can't keep up with rising prices. Most say, at best, financially they're staying in place, but more than 1/3 say they're falling behind. Nearly half, 45%, think the Biden administration's actions are increasing inflation.
Nearly half think the Biden administration's actions are increasing inflation. That's pretty bad.
As bad.
That's bad. Americans think things are bad.
That's bad.
And then also Chris Murphy was defending Biden's mental acuity. I pointed out the man's cured cancer and fixed climate change in a week. Imagine what he's going to do after he gets back from vacation. But NBC wanted to point out that 2/3 of Americans think Biden's mental state is bad.
A recent NBC News poll found more than 2/3 of all voters say they have concerns about the president having the necessary mental and physical health to serve.
So 2/3 of Americans think Biden's mental state is bad.
As bad.
It's bad. So this is Mockingbird media polls. They're admitting what we all think. So I don't know, man. I don't know who's wrong and who's right in this situation. Maybe we got to spread the message about Biden curing cancer and fixing climate change, or, you know, being a brand new granddad.
We have some late-breaking news tonight regarding President Biden's family.
Lester, that's right. For the first time tonight, President Biden is publicly acknowledging his 4-year-old granddaughter, Navy Joan, the child of his son, Hunter Biden.
The child of his son, Hunter Biden, who had it out of wedlock with a stripper and then denied the child for 4 years, is now being acknowledged by the president. That's breaking news. It is crazy what you see on the media these days about the Biden family. It's either about crime, it's either about curing cancer, or it's about grandkids that they're not acknowledging. That was my gist of what I got from what the Bidens were doing over the weekend. I mean, it's no wonder that Joe is taking 10 days at Rehoboth Beach on vacation. And did you see the picture of him shirtless on the internet? Mac,
oh, yes.
You saw it?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. It was
It's our
just,
strong and fearless leader.
yo, somebody should have said, keep the swim shirt on, Mr. President. Keep the swim shirt on, please. Anthony texted in and said, have they been putting paint chips in Biden's pudding? How does painting your ceilings white fight climate change? Well, Anthony, clearly you're not a climate scientist, but black absorbs heat, so if we paint our roofs white, we'll send that heat back into the atmosphere.
I think these roofs will just make it easier for the next Chinese spy balloon to see what's going on. That's all Joe Biden's doing.
Listen, let's get our roofs painted white, and we'll worry about the details later. 7422 texted in and said, Joe Biden couldn't strategize how to catch the last Cheerio in the bowl. 9875 texted in and said, OMG, what has that guy been smoking? Well, with what they have in the White House these days, it could be anything. It could be Parmesan cheese. It could be crack cocaine. We have yet to confirm that. 2862 texted in and said, good Lord, these people have no souls. You're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and 2936 says they could not get him on a horse.
No.
Heck no.
Oh, my gosh. If you haven't seen the shirtless picture of Joe Biden, don't. Yeah, don't. I was going to say I'd tweet it out or something, but I don't want to do that to you. Just don't. Save yourself. My eyes hurt still. It's 10:21 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Don't forget, Super Talk Live is happening at J Street Korean Bar and Grill. We're going to have Brian's show is going to be there live. Dan's going to be there. Matt's going to be there. Myself, Pamela Furr, Johnny B, and you. Grab your tickets at 997WTN.com for the next Super Talk Live.
How the shutdown of one of the nation's biggest trucking companies is going to affect your pocketbook. We'll tell you about it at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. It is 10:25 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So, we were going over the left-wing media, holding Biden's water. The senators, all the Democrats making their rounds on Mockingbird Media, covering all sorts of things about how it's Trump's fault that Hunter Biden's being charged and how the Bidens have done nothing wrong. But it was somebody else completely that caught my attention. Jeff Duncan. He's a Republican. So I'm equal opportunity with who I rail against, and I hope you guys understand that. I will rail against a Republican as quickly as I will rail against a Democrat. They just got to get in my crosshairs, I promise. So Jeff Duncan, former lieutenant governor in Georgia, said just something crazier than everything else I've heard over the weekend, and here it is.
You think that once in a generation leader is in the race yet?
I hope so. There's certainly some that have, Chris Christie's doing his part in taking it right to Donald Trump. And
is he? CNN asked the man, do you think there's any generational leaders in the presidential campaign? And Jeff Duncan, the former lieutenant governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp's former lieutenant governor, said this.
I hope so. There's certainly some that have, Chris Christie's doing his part in taking it right to Donald Trump. And
Chris Christie, baby, he's taking it to Trump. Chris Christie's bringing the heat. I mean, it's a hot pocket in his front pocket, but he's bringing the heat.
And Hurd and others are really trying to be articulate, but we need somebody that's got the whole package, and hopefully one of those are able to step up. But look, they should all be unanimous in rebuking anything Donald Trump has to do and say. He's hijacked our Republican Party.
Okay, so, he's got the talking points out there. Chris Christie's bringing the heat. Trump hijacked the Republican Party. To that I say, yes, he did, and good. But, Chris Christie's going to get him, but this is where it goes off the rail. Are you ready for where it goes off the rails? It's not off the rails yet, I promise. It's about to be. It's about to be.
And, this may be funny to say, but I was making this analogy last night. Nominating Donald Trump for the Republican Party is a lot like peeing in your pants, right? It's going to feel good for a couple of seconds.
What? What did you say, sir? What did you say on TV? What? Hold on. I'm going to bring it back to the top. Again, saying that Chris Christie's taking it to Donald Trump is not the crazy part of former lieutenant governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan, on CNN over the weekend. Chris Christie taking it to Donald Trump. That's not the crazy part. This is the crazy part.
He's hijacked our Republican Party. And, this may be funny to say, but I was making this analogy last night. Nominating Donald Trump for the Republican Party is a lot like peeing in your pants, right? It's going to feel good for a couple of seconds. But then you wake up and you realize the realities of what you just did. We're going to get beat in the general because we picked the wrong candidate. We couldn't get out of our own way.
That's quite a catchy analogy, Jeff. Besides the...
Thank you, Jeff. It's so catchy. That's such a catchy analogy.
Jeff, how long you been sleeping alone?
It made me think of Billy Madison, where the little kid pees his pants. So Adam Sandler's character fakes peeing his pants. He's like, you ain't cool unless you pee your pants. Yeah. Everybody's peeing their pants. All the cool kids are doing it, and then everybody lines up and starts peeing their pants. That's going to be one of the new symbols of rhinos. They're just going to be walking around with old pee pants.
This may be funny to say, but I was making this analogy last night. Nominating Donald Trump for the Republican Party is a lot like peeing in your pants, right? It's going to feel good for a couple of seconds.
Oh, it's going to feel good, all right. I promise you.
So does meth. What I hear.
Ask Hunter Biden. Meth's so good, you'll ignore your kids. All right. So, yeah, let's nominate Donald Trump and let's all pee in our pants. That's what I gathered from that. It is 10:29 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ken Weaver with some more serious news here on Super Talk.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. I don't see a chance for rain until Wednesday after lunch. on Wednesday, to get precise. Full forecast coming up in 2 minutes. One of the biggest trucking companies in the U.S., Yellow, will likely shut down. Here's Trevor Ault with the details.
It is a giant company. It's nearly a century old, and they're expected to file for bankruptcy as early as today. Now, Yellow's got nearly 30,000 employees. They have more than 12,000 trucks, and they have some major customers. And we're talking about Walmart, Home Depot. They do a ton of the shipping. In fact, the government deemed them so essential that they gave them a $700 million COVID relief loan to keep them functioning. And now they're expected to be the largest trucking bankruptcy in U.S. history.
Yeah, and it's expected to hit you with higher shipping costs. Right now in Tennessee, the death of an off-duty Cheatham County Sheriff's deputy is under investigation. The DA requested TBI agents to a home in the 2300 block of Highway 12 in Ashland City, where the body of the deputy was found and has since been sent to the medical examiner's office to determine the cause of death. No name released. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things I've been hearing a lot from people lately is the concern about the dollar crashing. And you'll see this out there on the internet all over the place, articles written about it. And the idea is that the Russian and Chinese, those countries are looking at getting together and creating their own currency that will compete against the US dollar as a reserve currency. Now, for many, many decades, there have been other currencies that have been trying to vie for that status. And there's a possibility that you're going to have some that are going to encroach on that a little bit. But is it that big of a thing to worry about? Well, number one, last year, the Chinese currency made up very little of any kind of world trade, number one. But what is it that's really going on underneath the surface? A lot of it is trying to sell you newsletters and investments that you probably ought to stay away from. For example, one of the things I see is, well, you ought to buy gold because the dollar's going to crash. And you see all of these commercials out there, and I say, well, wait a minute, wait. They're trying to get you to buy gold with your what? They're looking to take your dollars. If they really believe what they're saying, why would they take your dollars for their gold? Number one. Number two, how do you protect yourself against these valuation changes in various currencies? Well, let me explain it this way. Let's say that you had a currency called the clam. Okay, and you had a country that had one clam and you could exchange it for $1 at any one point in time. Let's say that that's the case. And you had a widget that was sold by this country, and you could buy that widget in that country for one clam. So you take your $1, you exchange it for a clam, and then you got your widget. Now, what if the dollar weakens? Well, what happens now, this clam is the same, right? Nothing different here. It's the same deal. But instead of $1, now it takes $2 to get the clam. Now, what happened? Your widget just doubled in price from your perspective as an American. Well, how do we use this to our advantage? As an investor, we want to make sure that we don't just myopically only focus on U.S. stocks. And that's a big mistake investors made from 2000 through 2010 and other periods in history, in the 1970s, the late 1980s, and so on and so forth. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we have good international diversification, because if the dollar weakens, then those international investments go up in value. So it's very, very important to know how globally diversified you really are as an investor. You want to learn more? Call us up for a free 15-minute consultation at paulwinkler.com, paulwinkler.com, and we'll walk you through what we do and see if we can be of help to you, the investor out there that is so often being sold things that they really don't need to be buying.
Hey, it's Chris Hand for USS United Structural Systems. Listen, I'm new to WTN. This is my new show, but I'm not new to USS. Like you, I've heard their commercials on Super Talk for years. And recently I had a chance to sit down and meet the people that work at USS. And I got to tell you, they're good people, honest, hardworking, and proud of the work they do. And after all the rain over the weekend and rain coming again later this week, as the weather report said, if you're noticing standing water in your crawl space, if you're noticing wet basement walls or cracks in your basement floors, your house is trying to tell you something. And if you don't speak house, the guys at USS do. So give them a call to check out your issue. 615-488-7855. 615-488-7855. They have 25,000 satisfied customers, and I'm confident you're going to be number 25,001. Call United Structural Systems today. 615-488-7855 or online at USSTN.com. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 10:35, 86 degrees outside. At least I think it is. Sometimes my computer doesn't update the temperature, and then I get called out on the Super Text line, which you're more than welcome to call me out on. I do enjoy it.
What did you say? What did you say you had?
I had 86.
Yeah, that's what I got.
All right, cool. So, all right, we're doing something right. If you want to text in and call me out on something I'm doing wrong, though, you're always more than welcome to. 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986. All right, it's Chris Hand Show. We've been talking a lot about how the left spent all weekend on all the Mockingbird media shows defending the Biden crime family. But then there was one unicorn out there in the forest who stood against all of the people defending the Biden crime family. And I want you to know who that man was, the bravery of this man. CNN analyst Scott Jennings. He served as an associate director in the Office of Political Affairs at the Bush White House before being named special assistant to the president in October 2005. Well, you know, he's on CNN. He's a Bush guy, so of course he's on CNN. But he took a different route on CNN, and I'm sure that he probably shocked all 17 of their voters the way he attacked this topic. All right. So we're going to start with a CNN anchor who's really setting the table for how they're going to be dealing with the Biden family announcement that Joe's got another grandkid. I've never heard of a grandkid joining a family at age 4, but anyway, he's got a new grandkid.
The president has made being a family man a central part of his political identity.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's how she sets the table. The president's made being a family man a central part of his political identity. Yeah. Pay no mind to the diaries of the one Biden daughter saying that he took inappropriate showers, and pay no mind to the other Biden Hunter who says he's been paying the bills for this family for years and, you know, negotiating overseas business deals. Don't worry about that. You know, being a family man, this is important stuff to Biden. It's central.
A central part of his political identity.
It's his identity. He's a family man. All right. This is where Scott Jennings just comes in and he goes full scorched earth. Are you ready for this?
It's not Republicans, with all due respect, who made Hunter Biden into a complete scumbag on this and other issues.
He said it's not Republicans' fault that Hunter Biden is a complete and utter scumbag. Thank you, sir. Thank you for saying that on CNN. People must have been freaking out. If CNN was still on in airports, it would have been pandemonium. People wouldn't have known what to do.
It's not Republicans, with all due respect, who made Hunter Biden into a complete scumbag on this and other issues.
And you think that he might stop there, but he was just like started dunking on him. And, you know, once he realized that, you know, he was in the NBA and he was playing a JV team, he was just dunking on CNN. Get ready.
The ignoring his own daughter for 4 years, and the president of the United States hanging up a stocking for the dog, and not for his 7th grandchild.
Okay, look, we can also have sympathy for people who are struggling with addiction. Let's keep this conversation respectful.
He said, let's have some sympathy for people with addiction. I don't know what that has to do with hanging up a Christmas stocking for the dog before your grandkid. Does that equate? Does that have something to do with the other?
For the dog, and not for his 7th grandchild.
Okay, look, we can also have sympathy for people who are struggling with addiction. Let's keep this conversation respectful.
Listen, I totally agree. And you know where I'm from, a lot of families deal with addiction. And you know who ends up picking up the pieces? The grandparents. And in this case, the grandparents would not acknowledge this little girl. It is offensive. But the bottom line is...
But they have now.
Oh, what a hero.
That's my favorite part of the interview right there. The grandparents have not acknowledged this little girl.
But they have now.
But they have now. Oh, what a hero.
Scott Jennings says, oh, what a hero. What a hero.
That's what they have now.
Oh, what a hero.
What a hero. Cracks me up every time I hear that. The CNN anchor. But they have now. After 4 years. Yeah. Thank you. After 4 years. Scott goes on as to why they actually decided to, admit that this seventh grandchild is Joe Biden's grandchild.
The polling must have been brutal.
Just
The
making
polling
sure
must have
that
been
the
brutal.
The polling must have been brutal. But the man he's a family man. He's built his whole career off being a family man. No, he's probably making decisions based off polling, like most politicians. And the polling on him ignoring his seventh grandchild.
The polling must have been brutal.
It must have been brutal.
Must have been brutal.
It must have been brutal. Now, of course, being CNN, they had a nameless Dem on there to provide the counterpoint to all of this.
No one ever questioned the heart and integrity of Joe Biden as a family man and as a human being and the pain and suffering and loss that man has been through, including the struggles he deals with.
30 seconds.
I love how the CNN host cuts him off. She's like, we got 30 seconds. Nobody believes you, sir. He says nobody's questioned Joe Biden as a family man.
The heart and integrity of Joe Biden as a family man.
Nobody
and
has.
as a human being and the pain and suffering and loss that man has been through.
The pain and suffering and loss that man has been through. That doesn't make you a good person. Everybody goes through pain and suffering and loss. Every human being does. It's part of this human experience that we live. Pain and suffering and loss. It doesn't make you an inherently good person because you go through something that every human goes through. But the nameless Democrat on CNN thinks that that's how you know that Joe Biden is a good person.
The heart and integrity of Joe Biden as a family man and as a human being and the pain and suffering and loss that man has been through, including the struggles he deals with.
30 seconds.
We got 30 seconds, pal. We got 30 seconds. This is too much. Even the CNN anchor knew that the Democrat was not winning over the hearts and minds of the people. And why are they not winning over the hearts and minds of the people? Well, as CBS puts it, the economy's bad right now.
Our new CBS News poll shows widespread pessimism about the economy. Roughly 2/3 describe it as bad.
It's bad. And you have Mockingbird Media. You have CNN, people coming on and just trashing Biden. CNN calling out the changing story. You have CBS saying that the economy's bad. NBC jumping in as well, saying that 2/3 of the country think Biden's mental state is bad. Yeah, go figure.
A recent NBC News poll found more than 2/3 of all voters say they have concerns about the president.
Yep, 2/3 of all voters say they have concerns about the president. Is this supposed to shock us? That 2/3 of all Americans have concerns about the president? You're not telling me that you have concerns about the guy that has a big speech and meeting to sign an executive order and then has to come back because he forgot to sign the executive order? You're telling me that 2/3 of Americans are worried about this guy?
Bad news is I'm coming back to shake your hand, but I forgot I didn't sign the order.
Oh, yeah, big speech to sign an executive order, and he forgets to sign the executive order. You mean to tell me that people are worried about this guy? Come on. Must be those QAnon conspiracy theorists. And Biden couldn't get through that speech at all without thinking about impeachment. It's on his mind.
Republicans may have to find something else to criticize me for. Now that inflation is coming down. Maybe they'll decide to impeach me because it's coming down. I don't know. I love that one. Oh, anyway.
Anyway. Joe Biden. And today we have Devin Archer testifying, Hunter's former business partner. He's walking into the courthouse. He's ignoring questions from reporters. But I do find this funny because I've been searching for the most up-to-date information for you on the Devin Archer testifying against with the House Judiciary Committee, testifying against Hunter Biden, testifying against Hunter Biden. I saw this article from the Washington Post, and it says The right once again gins up a baseless claim of intimidation. Talking about the letter that was sent to Devon Archer Saturday night. The letter saying, you need to report for jail for your other charge. Yeah. Not a joke. Jim Comer was on with Maria Bartiromo, and they discussed this letter and exactly what was inside of it when they told Devon Archer that he's got to go to jail instead of testifying.
So what is this letter? Can you walk us through it? The government is apprising the court of the status of Devon Archer's appeal of his judgment of conviction, and they request that the court set a surrender date for the defendant to report to a facility. Please walk us through what this letter says.
Yeah, the letter from the Department of Justice is trying to nudge the judge to go ahead and sentence Devon Archer for something unrelated to what we're going to be talking to him about tomorrow. It's odd that it was issued on a Saturday, and it's odd that it's right before he's scheduled to come in to have an opportunity to speak in front of the House Oversight Committee and tell the American people the truth about what really went on with Burisma.
And the Washington Post, they just crap all over James Comer. They say that this is not witness intimidation, despite what James Comer thinks. They say Archer was a business partner of Hunter Biden for years. In 2016, while Joe Biden was vice president, Archer and a number of other individuals were indicted on charges they defrauded members of a Native American tribe. They were found guilty, and this past February, Archer was sentenced to a year in prison. Archer's appealed the decision, and a federal court in New York declined to hear the final iteration of Archer's appeal earlier this month, informing the judge overseeing his case last week. A few days later, they sent the letter, which just so happened to be on Saturday. A letter in which, the Washington Post claims, there is no demand that Archer be arrested or immediately imprisoned. As Archer's attorney was aware, says the Washington Post. Archer's lawyer says, we are aware of speculation that the Department of Justice's weekend request to have Mr. Archer report to prison is an attempt by the Biden administration to intimidate him in advance of his meeting with the House Oversight Committee, Archer's attorney told Politico in a statement Sunday. To be clear, Mr. Archer does not agree with that speculation. Archer would testify before the oversight as planned, he added. So the Washington Post reports that they weren't asking him to go to jail, but then the Washington Post also reports that Archer's attorney says that them telling Mr. Archer to report to prison is an attempt by the Biden administration to intimidate him. So contradicting statements from the Washington Post, where, might I add, democracy dies in darkness. But James Comer kept going, and he really laid out why the Department of Justice is afraid of Devon Archer.
So, I don't know if this is a coincidence, Maria, or if this is another example of the weaponization of the Department of Justice, but I can tell you this. The lengths to which the Biden legal team has gone to try to intimidate our witnesses, to coordinate with the Department of Justice, and to certainly coordinate with the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee to encourage people not to cooperate with our investigation, to encourage banks not to turn over bank records, to encourage Treasury not to let us have access to those suspicious activity reports. It's very troubling, and I believe that this is another violation of the law. This is obstruction of justice.
Right-wing conspiracy theories. The Department of Justice always sends out letters on Saturday. And then after getting completely raked through the coals on social media says, no, never mind. We're sorry about that. Just let him testify. We're waiting to see what comes out of that testifying. Devon Archer is in there right now with the House Oversight Committee. The doors are closed, but as stuff leaks out, we will have it for you right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN all day long. Matt Murphy in after me, Brian Wilson in after him, and all of the analysis and reaction to Devon Archer's testifying and testimony to the House Oversight Committee as it comes out and as it becomes available. I would reckon that there will be little to no leaks, because usually the Democrats are the ones that do the leaking, and I don't know why they would want to leak this at all. Again, let me take off my tinfoil hat. That's just my conspiracy theory, that they're not going to want to talk about this. But as we're seeing CNN changing stories on, Joe Biden never talked to Hunter about business, or to now, Joe Biden was never in business with Hunter. the mainstream Mockingbird media is being forced to talk about this, and we're going to have the discussion for you right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The CDC touting a new COVID booster shot for the fall, and the latest on the property manager at Mar-a-Lago and what was supposed to be arraignment today. These stories and more at 11 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Make sure you're keeping up with me off air. The Super Text line, you can always reach out to 615-737-9986 or find me on Facebook, Instagram, Truth Social. All of those are at Chris Hand on air. Hey, don't forget, I want you to join us. Me, Dan Mandis, Matt Murphy, Brian Wilson, Pamela Furr, Johnny B. It's an evening with WTN on Tuesday, August 15th, J Street Korean Grill and Bar in Hendersonville. It starts at 6 p.m. We're going to have the last hour of Brian's show out there. And then an all-you-can-eat dining experience with some really, really great food, Korean food. And we're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about the Biden crime family. We're going to talk about who we think is going to be the Republican nominee for president. I mean, you probably know who I think it is. But we do want you to come break bread with us and talk about all the current events August 15th. In Hendersonville. Grab your tickets at 997WTN.com. All right, on the way, I want to talk about, schools getting started. And, we got good news and we got bad news. Bad news, what was happening in summer camps over the week, or over the last summer, and the camp counselors that have been hired. That's some bad news. I got some real bad news in that department. But we're going to go over that and what those camp counselors put on TikTok themselves. This is the thing that's about Democrats and leftists. They always seem to out themselves for what they're doing. And then they go, why are you accusing me of this? You literally put it on the internet. So we're going to talk about that. And then the good news, high school boys are trending conservative. I don't know. Why would you think high school boys are trending conservative? The mainstream media will say it's bizarre. It's unheard of. But, the quick take, when you demonize masculinity in its most basic form and call it toxic, boys tend to be rebellious. It's so weird. We're going to talk about all that and anything you want to talk about. Just hit the super text line, 615-737-9986. My name is Chris Hand. This is the Chris Hand Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And now Ken Weaver, man, he's got all the real news. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 11 o'clock on the dot this Monday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We'll tell you when it's going to rain next during the full forecast in 2 minutes. COVID-19, Derek Dennis says the CDC is out with some outdated numbers.
With more Americans spending time indoors away from the brutal summer heat comes an uptick in COVID hospitalizations. For the week ending July 15th, about 7,100 cases compared to about 6,400 from the week before. But help is coming. A new booster shot is in the works, likely available in the fall. Dr. John Brownstein with Harvard Medical School and Boston Children's Hospital says there's no word yet on which age groups will be covered.
We will likely see recommendations that are broadly population-wide.
For now, researchers say we're seeing some of the lowest COVID-19 hospitalizations and deaths since the pandemic began.
And the property manager at Mar-a-Lago was supposed to be arraigned today on charges he tried to have subpoenaed security footage erased. The rules of the federal court in South Florida require that a defendant is represented by a local lawyer. And while he lives in Palm Beach Gardens, Carlos de la Vera now has an attorney based in Washington, D.C. That means de la Vera's arraignment is being pushed back until August 10th. The same thing happened last month when Trump body man Walt Nauta also had his arraignment rescheduled due to lack of local counsel. De Oliveira will have to return will have to turn in his passport. And new concerns that China has hacked critical U.S. infrastructure and the search for malicious computer code in systems that control American power grids and water supplies. Martha Raddatz reminds us the U.S. has reason to believe this may already be happening.
It was just back in May that Microsoft said it detected malware associated with China in Guam, where there's a huge American base, saying that it could disrupt critical communications infrastructure between the U.S. and the Asia region during future crises. The Biden administration saying only they are working relentlessly to defend the U.S. from disruption while urging public utilities to step up their cyber defenses.
That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
$11:04 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We're already into hour number 3 of the Chris Hand Show. Time flies when you're, just roasting Democrats, I guess. Is that the saying? It is now. I'm gonna put it on a T-shirt. Time flies when you're roasting Democrats. All right. Speaking of Democrats, they don't ever really have anything of substance to run on. But they got to make new Democrats. And since they can't ever point to their successes, you get a lot of weird things going on. They infiltrate the schools, and they're even infiltrating summer camps. I mean, it's another form of grooming, what's going on at some of these overnight summer camps in the country. And I think they need to vet the camp counselors with a lot more scrutiny, because as I'm about to show you, these camp counselors quite literally are grooming your kids at these sleepaway camps for communism, and then they're bragging about it on the internet just openly. It's wildly insane.
I was a camp counselor for 1 week and turned an entire cabin of 13-year-olds into leftists. Here's how.
I was a camp counselor for 1 week and turned an entire cabin of kids into leftists. Here's how.
I was a camp counselor for 1 week and turned an entire cabin of 13-year-olds into leftists. Here's how. It started on day one when the kids of their own volition decided to have an election to see who would be president of the cabin. They had me track votes anonymously, and I may have broken the tie in favor of the obviously queer kid.
So he said they had a vote for president of the cabin, so I rigged the vote for the obviously queer kid. So that's a great way to start. And he's doing these creepy zoom ins and zoom outs on his face to try and put emphasis on his point. And he goes on. But wait, there's more.
Another kid who was weirdly obsessed with Russian history then asked if he could be Mikhail Gorbachev to the cabin, to which I said, I don't think so. You could be Karl Marx, though. He was thrilled.
Do you hear how creepy these people are? You could be Karl Marx. The kid agreed, and then he goes,
he was thrilled.
And he does this creepy zoom in on his face. This is who your camp counselors are at Sleepaway Camp. They're grooming your kids to be communists, and then they're bragging about it on the internet.
The kids then, somewhat clumsily, started discussing the merits of their communist government. It probably would have ended there, but on day 2, the president told me that he had trouble sleeping the night before and asked me if I had anything to read. I had exactly one book with me, The ABCs of Socialism.
Oh, so when a kid can't sleep, here, bud, read The ABCs of Socialism. It's unbelievable. This is grooming in action. You're grooming kids to be communists.
This kid read the entire book in one night.
And he does the creepy zoom in thing on his face again. One night.
The next day, another kid asked for it, and then another. By day 4, Karl Marx proposed that our cabin cheer be the communist cabin, where everyone is equal, and everyone agreed. Oh, the communist cabin, where everyone's equal. It works out, everybody's just equally broke and hungry. Long term, it always does work out to be equal. But, this is happening in kids' summer camps. Nobody's vetting these camp counselors. And then they're openly bragging about trying to turn your kids into communists at summer camp. Can we just focus on summer camp things? No, we can't. We're not allowed to do that. And you wonder why kids are turning away from things like the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts of America now is inviting LGBTQ advocacy groups to its National Jamboree camp in West Virginia. So you got one summer camp where they're teaching about communism. Then you got other summer camps where it's supposed to be the Boy Scouts, and they're teaching about LGBTQ advocacy. The advocacy, Breitbart reports, was applauded by LGBTQ advocate Mike DeSocio in the Washington Post. There's a value in the type of place it is becoming, one where any kind of any race or gender or sexual orientation feels at home. I don't know, call me old school, but I don't know if any gender needs to feel at home in the Boy Scouts. It should it's the Boy Scouts. Just be boys. Just me? Yeah. All right. Well, DeSocio has campaigned for an official welcome for gays and lesbians as well as transsexuals dubbed transgenders into the Boy Scouts organization. That demand contradicted the organization's original purpose of redirecting and subsuming young men's energy to help guide them through their turbulent adolescent years in puberty. Well, no, they're still guiding them through their turbulent adolescent years in puberty. They're just now grooming them for transgender ideology. And if you don't think that this can happen at a summer camp near you, it's happening. Here's another creepy one I found on TikTok. I'll go on TikTok so you don't have to. This guy he looks like Stacey Lawton, that Democrat rep that got busted for child porn in New Hampshire. That's what this guy looks like. But this guy is even creepier.
I've trained all the children at my summer camp to come to me whenever I play my recorder.
I've trained all the kids at summer camp to follow me whenever I play my recorder. He sounds like the guy from Office Space talking about his stapler.
I've trained all the children at my summer camp to come to me whenever I play my recorder. Bunch of 5 to 11-year-olds are just following me wherever I go.
Bunch of 5 to 11-year-olds are following me wherever I go, says the creepy man who's overly proud of this on social media. This guy's a camp counselor.
Bunch of 5 to 11-year-olds are just following me wherever I go. I have so much power and I love it. It's the perfect time to teach them about transgender.
And then it cuts off. But did you catch that last part? I have so much power, and I love it. And it's the perfect time to teach them about...
Bunch of 5 to 11-year-olds are just following me wherever I go. I have so much power, and I love it. It's the perfect time to teach them about transgender.
It's the perfect time to teach them about transgender. So I coax these 5 to 11-year-olds to follow me around while I play my flute. And then right when I got them, because I love the power, he says. I love the power it gives me, which is just such a groomer thing to say. Then he says the quiet part out loud after he's lured these 5 to 11-year-olds in with his recorder. Then he teaches them about trans rights and transgender.
I have so much power and I love it. It's the perfect time to teach them about transgender.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the left will wonder, with all this going on, the left will wonder, why are high school boys trending conservative? Oh, geez, I have no idea. It could be anything. It's definitely not the camp counselor's fault.
I have so much power and I love it. It's the perfect time to teach them about transgender.
The Hill reporting a popular narrative suggests young people are liberal and are getting more liberal. But social media buzzed when a chart surfaced in the spring that seemed to suggest 12th grade boys had become overwhelmingly conservative. As with many Reddit posts and viral tweets, the truth was more complicated. But the numbers do say this: 12th grade boys are nearly twice as likely to identify as conservative versus liberal, according to a respected federal survey of American youth. And I think that that's obvious. Listen, teenage boys tend to rebel. And you know what the most rebellious thing that you can do as a teenage boy in 2023 is? I'll tell you. It's be a Christian, be a conservative, start a family. It's the most crazy rebel thing that you can do. It's not the bars and stars flag. It's a cross on a necklace. It's believing in conservative principles. That's what rebellion looks like against the mainstream media and the circus of a country and government we have in 2023. That's rebellion. In an annual survey over the last 3 years, roughly 1/4 of high school seniors self-identified as conservative or very conservative on the Monitoring the Future survey, a scholarly endeavor that dates to the 1970s. Only 13% of boys identified as liberal or very liberal in those years. The figures represent a striking shift in the political views of boys. As recently as the late 2000s, liberal boys occasionally outnumbered conservatives. Back in the Carter era, both boys and girls lean liberal. Nowadays, it's girls who are drifting to the left. The share of 12th grade girls who identified as liberal rose from 19% to 30% from 2012 to 2022. And only 12% of girls identified as conservatives in last year's survey, which was done by the University of Michigan. Young women are trending liberal too, but it's the boys that are going right wing. The rightward drift of high school boys is comparatively subtle. Indeed, when it comes to politics, most boys seem reluctant to pick a side. In the 2022 Monitoring the Future survey, the largest group of senior boys, more than 2/5, claimed no politics at all, which is probably code for very conservative. If you're not claiming any political affiliation at all, it's probably because you're nervous about what may happen to you if you do claim a political affiliation. If you're a high school boy who says, I'm not into politics, I translate that as, I want to get into college and I don't want to be canceled on the internet. Is that just me? It seems to make sense. But in that 2022 Monitoring the Future survey, the largest group of senior boys, more than 2/5, claimed no politics at all, answering the liberal conservative question with none of the above or I don't know. Only 36% selected liberal or conservative as an ideology, and only there did the trend emerge. Honestly, if you're saying that you don't have a political opinion, you just want to stay out of cancel culture. I mean, sure, there's probably a small group of kids that really don't have a political opinion, but in this day and age, everything is politics. Culture is downstream of politics now. And these kids that are in 12th grade have been dealing with camp counselors, teachers, and everyone else shoving communism, transgender ideology, left-wing policy, all of it down their throats for their entire schooling now. So you either have a pro view of it or a negative view of it. But it's happening. In Illinois, just to illustrate how this is happening, the Education Association posted a video to their Twitter account about how to get pride flags and Black Lives Matter flags into your classroom to teach young kids. You got to have your pride flags and your Black Lives Matter flag, right?
Educators across the country want to support their students by displaying inclusive symbols in their classroom. But what are your rights when you want to display a pride flag or a Black Lives Matter poster? First, schools can control displays in classrooms, but when they choose to do so, they have to be even-handed and they can't single out certain viewpoints for discrimination.
So she's saying this message and she has a huge pride flag behind her. She's saying it like, you know, this is a positive thing, getting this inclusive language in schools. It's not a brainwashing tactic. I wonder how they would feel if it was a Bars and Stars flag or a Gadsden flag. Would that be hate speech?
Second, many districts have policies in place that control what you can display in your classroom or in your school. You should check your collective bargaining agreement, your employee handbook, the school district's policies.
Check the school district policy because it may not be allowed in your school district, she says.
If you haven't seen others display similar symbols in their classrooms, reach out to your union representative first.
Oh, go talk to the unions. If you don't see those flags, guaranteed the union's going to have your back. Oh, Randy Weingarten.
And talk through how best to approach school administrators. If your administrator objects, talk to the union about how best to proceed. You could face discipline if you violate a school rule.
Do we really think that they're going to face discipline for putting up a pride flag if their school administrators disagree? And again, she says if your school administration doesn't want that, talk to your union rep. Get in touch with Randy Weingarten.
Finally, if you disagree with your school district's policy, challenge it.
Challenge it.
In Connecticut, a local education association joined with parents and students to challenge a school district policy that prohibited the display of pride flags in schools. And they won. Now, in that school district, pride flags can be displayed.
Oh, they won. The kids lost. But the school, the ideologically subversive teachers won. And it seems like these people are in powers of position. They're watching your kids. Be very careful where you're leaving your children because they're in camps, they're in the Boy Scouts, they're in the schools, and they're just alarmed that high school boys are becoming more and more conservative. They're shocked. So expect them to ramp up their efforts to fix that problem. I tell people this all the time. I cut so many corners to send my kids to a private school. Like literally cut every corner I can do to make it happen. It's not cheap. I know it's not an option for everybody. And I understand that, but homeschooling might be an option for you, or getting together with a group of parents to homeschool might be an option for you, and giving them a foundation of truth instead of a foundation of anti-biology. I think that that's a better route. And blindly trusting people to just have the best interest for your kids is not a good route, because their best interests and your best interests are probably not the same thing. It is 11:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Find me offline. Twitter, Instagram, Truth Social, at Chris Hand on air. I see your super texts at 615-737-9986. We'll get to those next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hear from some of the victim impact statements before Lori Vallow is sentenced for the murders of her 2 children. Also, the latest money news at 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We were talking about Camp Commie and Camp Groomer. I mean, there was a guy who literally bragging on the internet about turning a cabin of 13-year-olds into communists at a sleepaway summer camp.
I was a camp counselor for 1 week and turned an entire cabin of 13-year-olds into leftists. Here's how.
And then he gives a whole here's how. Oh, I gotta love it. And then there was another camp counselor who was just so excited that the kids loved for him to play his recorder and he can teach 5 and 11-year-olds about transgender.
Bunch of 5 to 11-year-olds are just following me wherever I go. I have so much power and I love it. It's the perfect time to teach them about transgender.
Yep. That's what we're dealing with. The subversion of these people sneaking in to every institution. I asked for your text at 615-737-9986. I got a good text from 9800. Do you not think that these kids aren't being taught this at home? No conservative parents are going to let their children go to this kind of camp, says 9800. And I agree with you. I don't think any conservative parent would want their kids going to this kind of camp, but I also want to point out that this is happening at camps because it could be happening at your camp. Just because you don't think that you're going to an LGBTQ pro-communist camp doesn't mean that the counselors that are there aren't there to teach kids about LGBTQ ideology or about communism. Like they very well could be infiltrating and be in there with the intent to teach your kids about that. 3887 said, original purpose, they could always do arts and crafts at summer camp, learn to paint like Hunter Biden instead of painting happy little trees, they'll paint sad little broke ones. Yeah. Keith texted and said, is that the same summer camp Joe Biden went to? It may be. It may be, Keith. Larry texted and said, this is also why people are leaving the military and why recruitment is down, all the woke stuff. Yep. 9495 texted in, first-time texter, girls in the Boy Scouts. All these organizations have been acceptably segregated over the years. Why do they need to change now? Yep. They also texted in, sounds like you're sending your kids to one of those camps. It's kind of like peeing in your pants. Yes. If you missed it, all right. So that was good. 94-95.
Nice.
So former Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp's Lieutenant Governor, Jeff Duncan, was on CNN over the weekend, and they were asked about people going for the Republican nominee for president, and the Rhino Republican former Lieutenant Governor had this to say.
I hope so. There's certainly some that have, Chris Christie's doing his part in taking it right to Donald Trump.
Chris Christie's doing
and
it.
Hurd and others are really trying to be articulate, but we need somebody that's got the whole package, and hopefully one of those are able to step up. But look, they should all be unanimous in rebuking anything Donald Trump has to do and say. He's hijacked our Republican Party, and this is maybe funny to say, but I was making this analogy last night. Nominating Donald Trump for the Republican Party is a lot like peeing in your pants, right? It's going to feel good for a couple of seconds.
I don't know. That's what 94-95 was talking about. Yeah, so sending your kids to those camps does feel like peeing in your pants. It's an absolute mess. It's an absolute mess. So these people are in these camps teaching your kids about this ideology. What do you think about it? 615-737-9986. All right. So there's so many texts coming in. I know when my son was in the Boy Scouts, they had a few girls in his pack. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not against it. Like what? But there's Girl Scouts. Like I don't want to be like anti-kids doing kid stuff. But I am anti-communism and LGBTQ ideology when kids need to do kid stuff. It has no place in any of it. No place. It's like peeing in your pants.
9645 says the uptick in liberal girls used to be boys. LOL.
Oh, jeez. And all their parents are victims of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Keith texted in and said, I think when I get home from work today, I'm going to go pee in my pants to see if it does feel good. Listen, Keith, I'm going to tell you right now, man, you ain't cool unless you pee your pants. Everybody's doing it.
Do it right now and use it as an excuse to go home early.
There you go, Keith. Take the Ken Weaver method.
Said use a cup of water.
Jesus. Joe Biden pees in his pants all the time. So, it all depends.
Watch it, fella.
Luciano texted in and said, this is ridiculous and sick. Why are these people getting sought after? They should show their faces. Unfortunately, Luciano, they are showing their faces. They're all over TikTok bragging about their virtue and how they're doing such good things. Turning your kids into communists and being advocates for LGBTQ ideology. 2133 said, I'm going to pee in my jorts. Don't ruin a good pair of jorts, 2133. Don't do it, bud. Don't do it.
Take the hard candy out first.
Keith said he can't pee in his pants right now because he's driving a big truck in Atlanta. Well, nothing of yeah. You definitely don't want to be stuck on the streets of Atlanta with pee in your pants.
Wouldn't be too uncommon, probably.
No, it's probably not uncommon at all, actually, in the old heroin triangle. All right, enough of peeing in your pants. It's time for the news with Ken Weaver on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
$11:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Still showing no rain until Wednesday at the earliest. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Right now in Idaho, victim impact statements before Lori Vallow sentenced for the murders of her 2 children, conspiring to kill her husband's then-wife, Tammy Daybell. This is Tammy's sister, Samantha Gwilliam.
Police ask us about missing children. You answer, the children aren't missing. They're safe and happy. It's a lie. Your children, your poor children, were dead and buried on Chad's property.
Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, doomsday theorists who said they believed that they were spiritually chosen and responsible for eliminating, quote, dark people from the earth. Money News, Jim Ryan.
Stocks barely budged to start the trading week. Going into the midday, the Dow Jones was up about 14 points. The Nasdaq was higher by 0.1%. The S&P was a fraction above the flat line. Europe appears to be following the lead of the United States. Headline inflation in the euro area was 5.3% in July, according to preliminary data released today. That's lower than the 5.5% registered in June. Elon Musk and the platform formerly known as Twitter are threatening to sue the Center for Countering Digital Hate. Musk claims that the British nonprofit smeared Twitter when it accused X Corp of failing to act on nearly all hate speech which had been posted by subscribers. And the next generation iPhone may be a little lighter and easier to charge than the current iteration. Bloomberg reports that the iPhone 15 will use the USB-C charger, that its edges will be made of titanium instead of steel. Bloomberg says it's also likely to be more expensive.
That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things I've been hearing a lot from people lately is the concern about the dollar crashing. And you'll see this out there on the internet all over the place, articles written about it. And the idea is that the Russian and Chinese, those countries are looking at getting together and creating their own currency that will compete against the US dollar as a reserve currency. Now, for many, many decades, there have been other currencies that have been trying to vie for that status. And there's a possibility that you're going to have some that are going to encroach on that a little bit. But is it that big of a thing to worry about? Well, number one, last year, the Chinese currency made up very little of any kind of world trade, number one. But what is it that's really going on underneath the surface? A lot of it is trying to sell you newsletters and investments that you probably ought to stay away from. For example, one of the things I see is, well, you ought to buy gold because the dollar's going to crash. And you see all of these commercials out there, and I say, well, wait a minute, wait. They're trying to get you to buy gold with your what? They're looking to take your dollars. If they really believe what they're saying, why would they take your dollars for their gold? Number one. Number two, how do you protect yourself against these valuation changes in various currencies? Well, let me explain it this way. Let's say that you had a currency called the clam. Okay, and you had a country that had one clam and you could exchange it for $1 at any one point in time. Let's say that that's the case. And you had a widget that was sold by this country and you could buy that widget in that country for one clam. So you take your $1, you exchange it for a clam, and then you got your widget. Now, what if the dollar weakens? Well, what happens now, this clam is the same, right? Nothing different here. It's the same deal. But instead of $1, now it takes $2 to get the clam. Now, what happened? Your widget just doubled in price from your perspective as an American. Well, how do we use this to our advantage? As an investor, we want to make sure that we don't just myopically only focus on U.S. stocks. And that's a big mistake investors made from 2000 through 2010 and other periods in history, in the 1970s, the late 1980s, and so on and so forth. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we have good international diversification, because if the dollar weakens, then those international investments go up in value. So it's very, very important to know how globally diversified you really are as an investor. You want to learn more? Call us up for a free 15-minute consultation at paulwinkler.com, paulwinkler.com, and we'll walk you through what we do and see if we can be of help to you, the investor out there that is so often being sold things that they really don't need to be buying.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. What's going on? It's Chris Hand. So I'm trying to figure out what to talk about. I mean, there's just no news going on. I'm joking, obviously. Devon Archer testifying today before the House Oversight Committee. We're waiting to hear word on what's happening in this closed-door testimony before the GOP-led committee. Nothing is leaking out yet, which I would just assume means it's good for the Republicans. If there were leaks, it would probably be coming from the Democrat camp, and it would be like, oh, we told you it was a nothing burger. But as we get more information on what Devon Archer says, we'll have it for you first right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We are live all day long. Matt Murphy on after me at noon. Brian Wilson with The Drive taking you home. And the latest and up-to-date information on Devon Archer, Hunter Biden, all that fun stuff will be here as it becomes available. All right, so we were talking about this trend of high school boys becoming conservative, and it's not really surprising, but there is some surprising stuff going on in Illinois. There's an education association who's putting out videos about how to get pride flags and Black Lives Matter flags into classrooms. And I was thinking to myself, like, what is going on in Illinois? So I'm doing Google searches. I'm like, what is happening in Illinois? And then I see this thing that just like totally shocked me. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, the very in shape J.B. Pritzker, signs a law allowing DACA illegal aliens to become police officers. Yeah, you heard that right. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has signed into law a plan that allows foreign nationals with work permits, some of whom are illegal aliens, to become police officers in the sanctuary state of Illinois. This is one of the craziest stories I've ever heard. What is going on in Illinois? Democrat legislators with a supermajority in the Illinois House Senate House and Senate, passed legislation in June that opens law enforcement jobs to thousands of illegal aliens enrolled in the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. The Dreamers. Got to take care of the Dreamers. As well as thousands of other foreign nationals with work permits from the federal government. An individual against whom immigration action has been deferred by the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service under the federal DACA process is allowed to apply for the position of police officer, deputy sheriff, or special policeman, subject to specified requirements, a summary of the legislation states. There's so much wrong with this. Illegal aliens wielding state power over U.S. citizens in Illinois. And there's already distrust between the African-American community and police. And as we covered last week, there's distrust between and disdain between African-Americans in Chicago and illegal aliens. This happened at a city council meeting about the migrants in Chicago. This was at a city council meeting.
Many of these residents say they no longer have any tolerance for the disruptive behavior by those seeking asylum here. It's making them feel unsafe.
They disrespect us, they rob us, they harass us.
And their patience is wearing thin.
Let me say this. They got one more time to deal with it, because otherwise, next time they deal with it, they're going to deal with it from the streets. We're going to take over it. Nobody's going to be able to stop us from what we're going to do to them.
So that's how the residents of Chicago feel about the illegal alien problem. And now the governor just signed into law that illegal aliens in Chicago and Illinois can police American citizens. The same Chicago area where there's already distrust between the community and the police, the same community where illegal aliens are butting heads with members of the community because they're being harassed and robbed, and the members of the community are threatening to have to handle this in the streets. Those same illegal aliens are now going to police these people.
They disrespect us, they rob us, they harass us.
And their patience is wearing thin.
Let me say this. They got one more time to deal with it, because otherwise, next time they deal with it, they're going to deal with it from the streets.
How does anybody think this is a good idea? What is in the water in Illinois that somebody thought this was a good idea? Illegal aliens wielding state power over U.S. citizens. I just want to drive that home. That's what's happening in Illinois. Distrust already between the community and the police, ongoing. Disdain between the African-American community in Chicago and illegal aliens is happening. And now illegals will be policing the same people in the state that don't like them in the first place. What? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. What? This is Chicago. This is your state on Democrats. But nobody thinks it's a problem. Nobody bats an eye. I hope that this gets taken up to the highest court in the land and completely thrown out as unconstitutional. There's no reason why an illegal alien should be able to wield state power over an American citizen. Call me old-fashioned. I'd love to know what you think. 615-737-9986. 8912 texted in and said, Illinois, they're probably just finding the only people who are glad to work. It may work out better than you think. Yeah, you know what? Maybe. 6024 said, remember, none of this is incompetence or stupidity. It's intentional. Yep. You're absolutely right.
And right before that, he said, or 6024 said, makes a lot of sense. Most of these illegals come from far left countries. Therefore, it enables the Illinois governor to install their own legal Gestapo and can implement the police state that they want.
Dude, it's so crazy. So they see the Chinese police stations being set up in the country, and they're like, you know what? We could use one of those. Let's do that. It's insane.
4726, Illinois, ill and annoying.
Yeah. Discuss. Oh my gosh. 6447 said, so black people in Chicago are mad, but other ethnic cities are destroying Chicago. So only black people can destroy Chicago? I think you're missing the point. They're mad that they're being harassed and robbed in their own community by people that don't belong there. And they're being subject to policies that nobody likes. There's Tucker Carlson and Ice Cube have a new interview out, and he's saying just that. They don't care. They're not making policies for anybody. They're making policies for themselves. Like Mac pointed out, why wouldn't you want your own private Gestapo full of people that are just going to do your bidding because they have no allegiance to the American way of life? They have no allegiance to the people in the community. Wasn't this what the whole defund the police was about? We need to have more people that are representing our community in the community. It's so crazy. I had a guy text me. Somebody reminded me. Somebody hit me up on Instagram when I first play these clips of the anger in Chicago.
We're going to take over it. Nobody's going to be able to stop us from what we're going to do to them.
And he said, try that in a Chi-town. Oh.
Wow.
I mean, keep 3235 texted in and said, keep voting Democrat, then complain about the consequences. Yep. I mean, that's pretty much what we do.
Bingo.
The insanity never stops. If you're just tuning in, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker signed into law allowing DACA illegal aliens to police Americans. He signed into law that if you are a DACA illegal alien, you can, and you have a work permit, you can now apply to become a police officer, a deputy sheriff, a special policeman, but you're subject to those specified requirements. Okay. Meanwhile, the residents of the city, they're not too fond of the illegal aliens that are there currently. And we're seeing illegal aliens run over just about every blue city. The mayor of New York City is asking them to please stop coming. In LA, illegal aliens are being bussed in, and people have had enough. Kamala Harris says, you're using people as pawns.
Busloads of migrants have been dropped off right at your doorstep by some GOP-led states. Despite those tactics, you do have Republicans who are largely making inroads with Latino voters, and there are many critics, some within your own party, who say that there's more that your administration should be doing on the migration front. Do they have a point?
So, first of all, let's agree that people should not be the pawns in a political game. Human beings should not be treated as pawns in a political game. What is happening in terms of sending these migrants, most of whom have fled great harm, and sending them across the country for the sake of some political showmanship, it's just irresponsible. If you want to deal with the problem, then do it, if you are a leader, by participating in the solution.
Well, J.B. Pritzker in Illinois thinks the solution is making those illegal aliens police officers. Talk about using people as pawns. I mean, just to enforce the policy of the Democratic state in Chicago, when the residents don't want it, don't like it, and don't want any more illegal aliens in their community. They're being harassed and robbed. But Kamala Harris thinks that we're irresponsible for using these people as pawns when they could just as simply secure the border. Just go back to the Trump policies where people weren't flying in every day. Thousands upon thousands apprehended in weeks periods. And that's just who's apprehended. But no. J.B. Pritzker. Jason texted in 3579, said J.B. Pritzker also got rid of cash bail. Yep. This is your city on Democrats. I mean, Nashville can't look at Chicago and see that. You just look at Chicago and see the future for what blue Democrat policies are coming to you, because they're everywhere. I mean, it's not a stretch to think that this could be Nashville in 10 years. Not a stretch at all. That's why this upcoming mayoral race is so important. You know, we do have a chance to elect some Republicans. Talk to somebody you know. Tell them what's happening in Chicago. Would you want an illegal alien policing the streets of Nashville? That's what your city looks like on blue policy. That's that blue magic. 9465 texted and said, sounds like Jason Aldean needs to make a trip to Chicago for a concert. Be careful. 0333 texted in and said, people in Chicago and Illinois should vote differently. You can't keep doing the same things and expect a different outcome. You'd be surprised. When I lived in Detroit, I said that one time, you know, the Flint water crisis is happening. Detroit is falling apart. The city was going bankrupt. And I said to somebody, why don't you guys just vote Republican? Like, you've been voting Democrat for how long? Like, nothing's gotten better. Why not just try something different? I got the craziest look, and I was told I don't know anything about politics. And I'm sure that you're going to get the same reaction for suggesting to vote conservative in Chicago, even though, believe it or not, a lot of the African-American community aligns much more with conservative values than they do with Democrat values. When it comes to the LGBTQ ideology stuff, the Democrat Party is a bridge too far when it comes to the African-American community and the Latino community. We can make real inroads in these areas if we lean in to what is happening in these blue cities. And when you see J.B. Pritzker making illegal aliens police officers in Chicago, it's a recipe for disaster. Jeez. It's 11:50 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. This is the last day of July. And tomorrow's August, man. Whew. Matt Murphy is going to be jumping in here next. Let us know what he's got on the show today, noon to 3. And anything that comes up with Devon Archer and his testimony in front of the House Oversight Committee, we'll have it for you here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's 11:57. I'm joined by my best friend, Matt Muffrey.
You seen that?
Matt
Muffrey?
Matt Muffrey got some mail correspondence. Hey, Chris and how
Hello,
are you?
I'm good.
Hello. Matt Muffrey with you.
Yeah, Matt Muffrey, who does the Noon to 3 show. He's super talented. I listen to him every day. All right, so
Free book.
A super texter said to me, and he gave no context, but he said, Chris, ask Matt about going over to Dan's to see him in his bathtub. So I don't know what the context is, but I told super texter Jason that I would oblige him. So what's up with you and Dan in the bathtub?
So we were sitting at the Tennessee Radio Hall of Fame ceremony in lovely Columbia, Tennessee, at the Mule House Saturday night. And we, Johnny B was there, his lovely wife, Brian Wilson, his lovely wife, Jack Womack was there. I was there. My wife could not attend. And Dan and his beautiful bride were there as well. And for some reason, some subject matter got brought up about Dan's house. And Dan looks at me and says, yeah, Matt. And there's zero context. There was no conversation about his bathtub prior to this statement. But out of nowhere, Dan says, yeah, Matt, you can come over and I can show you my bathtub.
Oh. I'll show you how to file a complaint with HR if you want me to.
To which there was a slight pause, and I looked at Dan and I said, no. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing
the
that.
Context you're looking for is he wants you to see where he makes those phone calls from.
The bubble bath?
Yeah.
He does.
And
you
we've
can
all
catch
gotten
him. He'll call you in the bathtub.
Oh, I don't
He's
wanna
done it
know
to me
that.
before. And because you can hear the echo and you don't want to ask and you don't want to think about it, but it's all you can think about.
I'd rather just envision that he's like pooping or something. It's Super Talk
Maybe in the
99.7
tub.
WTN. Matt's up next. Hang out with us.